back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. That's Cat Stevens, because the Washington Post published 10,000 words on Cat Stevens today. I'm playing Cat Stevens. I don't know why they did. They just chose today. Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas is my guest. Good morning, Senator Cotton. You're not much of a Cat Stevens fan, I assume.
Good morning, Hugh. It's good to be on with you. It's nice bumper music, but I can't say no that I have his whole selected works.
Okay. Well, I really want to talk to you today about two stories. One in the New York Times, headline, Democrats to pair spending bill with raising debt ceiling, pressuring GOP, and one in the Washington Post about the same thing, putting pressure on the GOP by virtue of this bill. Senator Cotton, is the GOP under any pressure whatsoever? I've listened to Leader McConnell. It leads me to believe that there actually is no confrontation, no showdown, no pressure.
No, Hugh. I feel zero pressure from the Democrats. Senator McConnell, from his public statements, obviously feels no pressure. And I can tell you that our caucus is united, from our more centrist members to our members on the far right. And that this simple belief, if the Democrats want to pass $6 trillion of new spending this year on a party line basis, then they can pass the debt ceiling increase that will accommodate that $6 trillion on a party line basis as well. And the refusal to do so is the ultimate case of eating elephants and choking on gnats.
You know, I believe that the correct headline would be Democrats in House, Democrats in Senate in disarray, cannot agree on how much to raise taxes and to spend and debt ceiling. Isn't that the correct headline as opposed to putting pressure on GOP? They're just in disarray.
They are in total disarray, although I guess that implies that they were at one point in array, and I'm sure I want to concede that point, Hugh. And remember what we're talking about here, Hugh. This is not their massive, reckless, unprecedented $3.5 trillion tax hike and spending bill. This is just a spending bill to keep the lights on in the federal government next Friday. This is just the annual spending bills and the debt ceiling increase necessitated by their spending blowout this year. And then, as you point out, when you get to that reckless tax hike and spending bill, they are in total disarray, and they're at daggers drawn, attacking each other in the most vicious and personal terms. Maybe they should therefore think about going back to the drawing board and not trying to remake American society with the razor-thin margins the American people gave them last fall, and on which Joe Biden did not campaign.
Now, given the fact that reconciliation allows them, they've passed, they're on the diving board and they're jumping. They put the diving board in place. They can do whatever they want, up to $3.5 trillion of spending. They can raise as many taxes as they want. They can lower as many taxes as they want. And they can raise the debt limit. They can also do the CR. They can do whatever they want to do on tax and spending and debt limit and continuing resolution. All they have to do is agree. They don't need any Republican votes. Am I correct if they agree?
Hugh, that is almost correct, with the exception of the so-called continuing resolution, which keeps the government open at the end of the month. Now, I can tell you the Republican votes would be there as long as they don't try to connect it to the debt ceiling increase to pay for their record spending spree this year, and as long as they don't include extreme immigration matters that would treat some of these Afghan evacuees more generously than we treat the Afghans who served alongside us and received special immigrant visas. But if they want to pass a stopgap spending bill that keeps the government open until December, there'll be plenty of Republican votes for that. Everything else, Hugh, can be done on reconciliation, and that is Senator McConnell's point. He said time and again that the United States must never default on our debts. However, it's not just a theoretical proposition that the Democrats can use reconciliation to pass it with Democratic votes alone. They are literally writing a reconciliation bill right now, so they have the perfect and timely means to raise the debt ceiling on their own to pay for their spending blowout that they're passing on their own.
Now, my theory behind these headlines, Democrats unveil new plan to fund government, suspend debt ceiling as major showdown with GOP looms. That's the Washington Post. And the New York Times, Democrats to pair spending bill with raising debt ceiling, pressuring GOP is part of legacy media's ongoing effort to make Republicans the bad guys. But I want to go back to the bottom line point. If Democrats can simply get their act together and agree among themselves on how much to spend, how much to tax, they can put that on the floor with a debt ceiling and pass it with no Republican votes. Is that factually correct?
Factually correct, Hugh. Another way of putting it is the Democrats' problem isn't that they don't have 60 votes right now. It's that they don't have 50 votes right now, or they don't have 218 votes because they cannot agree among themselves what taxes to increase in their record tax hike or what programs to create or to spend more money on in their unprecedented $6 trillion spending blowout. That's their problem.
And so Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer are endangering the full faith and credit. I believe everything Secretary Yellen has said. It's a disaster not to raise the debt limit. But it's up to the Democrats to raise the debt limit. And they are talking to television cameras and reporters as opposed to each other. Am I right?
That's right, Hugh. They're taking a page from Joe Biden's blame shifting on the Afghanistan debacle. Joe Biden said the buck stopped with him, but blamed everyone under the sun, from Donald Trump to the military to our intelligence agencies, even to normal Afghans. And now the Democrats are blaming everyone but themselves for what they could and should do on their own, which is raise the debt ceiling to accompany their party line spending blowout.
Now, if they got AOC and one of the 9 House moderate Democrats, plus Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin, plus the president in a room, they could get to a bottom line, could they not?
Okay, first, let me correct you. There are no moderate Democrats in the House. There are only vulnerable Democrats.
Okay, well put.
But that's basically what they have to do, Hugh. They have to quit talking past each other. They have to quit talking to each other through the media, and they have to settle on what they want to do themselves. And if that means that they can't achieve the full left-wing progressive wish list that they pursued earlier this year, they have to take a step back and take a step toward responsible governance, which is increasing the debt ceiling with their own votes, since they've been passing party line bills on this unprecedented spending spree this year. Then that's exactly what they could.
So I want to emphasize, not one Republican senator, not one, will defect on a debt limit and run via the continuing resolution. Am I right?
I would be very surprised at any defections, Hugh. I can say there is no chance, and I mean 0 chance, that 10 Republican senators will vote with the Democrats on that.
And the Democrats know this.
The Democrats have known it for at least 2 months.
So
McConnell has been cautioning them since July that while they were crafting their party line budget that they wanted to spend $3.5 trillion on, they should add a party line debt ceiling increase.
So if there is a debt limit crisis and it does shatter markets and confidence in the dollar, it will be the fault of the Democrats, no matter how many headlines they have in legacy media and on unwatched cable television channels. It will be on them.
Yes, it'll be the Democrats' sole responsibility. I hope it won't come to that. I hope that they will get through the stages of grief sooner rather than later and take the steps that they should have taken starting 2 months ago.
How many Senate Democrats do they have to actually negotiate with? Is it 5, 6, 7, or is it just Senators Manchin and Sinema?
Very few, Hugh. I mean, you have vulnerable Democratic senators like Maggie Hassan and Kathy Cortez Masto, who may, put out a press release here and there to reassure their sensible voters back home. But in reality, they've told Chuck Schumer they'll vote for whatever he puts on the floor. So you have a couple senators here and there on certain issues like Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema on this bill that require genuine negotiations. But most of these Democrats in the House and the Senate are just rubber stamps for whatever Pelosi and Schumer put on the board.
Are there any Democrats who will stop the doubling of the death tax, who will stop the erasure of stepped-up bases, who will stop confiscatory capital gains hike increases?
Well, at least on the question of stepped-up basis, we didn't just get any Democrat. We got 50 of them. Last month, we voted 99 to nothing in the budget that set up this framework for their spending bill. And we should not eliminate stepped-up basis because it would be a huge and confiscatory tax on family farmers and ranchers and foresters and small businesses. And it would be an unprecedented break with practice. when they're scrounging for money, trying to find every last dime they can to take out of your pocket and spend it on their priorities, like welfare for illegal aliens, who's to say they'll stick to their principles in that vote? But I was pleased that even the far-left Democrats recognized that that would be a radical departure in a confiscatory tax.
But they're not bound by that, right? They can still write the bill any way they want.
Yes, that's correct, Hugh.
And so will they double? I mean, is there anyone on their side who at least pretends not to want to double the death tax?
Probably some of their rich Democrats, like your senator out there in California, Hugh.
Dianne Feinstein wants to keep her money when her estate passes to her heirs?
I would imagine that some of those rich Democrats, of whom there are more than a few, would not like to pay the confiscatory tax. That's one reason why in their proposals in the House, you've seen steep increases, but not what Joe Biden and the far left had wanted earlier this year.
So just project. We got a minute left, Senator. If they actually sat down and did their job, since they run everything and they've got reconciliation authority, what number do you think they'll end up doing in terms of deficit spending with the debt limit? And how much will they totally spend? Will it be $1 trillion, $1.5 trillion, $3 trillion? And how many taxes will they raise?
Hugh, I once tried to put myself inside the minds of Democrats, and it was a deep, dark abyss, and I stepped backward, and I've never done it again. So I won't try to project. I will say this, the number should be zero for almost every initiative they propose, and rather we should be spending that new money, if we're going to have any new money at all, on our military, which under Joe Biden's budget saw a real cuts after inflation, while he was proposing that every other department of the government get huge increases. But given the dangerous world, made more dangerous by Joe Biden's fiasco in Afghanistan, the only thing that we should be increasing spending on right now is our military.
Well, please applaud the caucus when you get together next on behalf of the American electorate, because they ran to run everything. They've got everything. They caught the car. It's the dog that caught the milk truck or the mail truck. Now they have to govern. I'm glad you guys are doing this and gals the right way. Thank you, Senator Cotton. Talk to you next week.
Thank you, Hugh.